Hey everyone, today we'll be discussing laser engraving and hand routing. So just with a little bit of routing, you can give your signs a lot more detail. Now this is the Jeweled Beetle, a lovely young lady that I met at a vendor craft show who does jewelry. So that's the play on words is beetle. I did not spell it wrong. So just from a simple business card to designing up a concept for her for a sandwich board that she could take with her to various shows. And my lovely husband is holding the sign up there, and we're going to discuss how I did this. An extreme close-up. So I started with my ORTUR Laser Master 2 Pro. So forget about hand drawing, forget about tile printing and then taping your pages together and then using spray adhesive to glue to your sign and then the messy sanding cleanup. Use a laser engraver for clean and crisp designs. So this is just a simple Mastercraft V-groove bit, and it works pretty good. It's not exactly the sharpest tool, but in a second I'm going to show you the V-groove bit that I actually used, which is a 4 flute, which means it's sharp as heck and it's going to go through your wood like butter, and it doesn't leave any threads or debris behind that you see, especially under the A. That was from the V groove, but then I switched to this carbide end mill tip and it just works fantastic. Now you can use a straight spiral bits. This is a tapered bit. Again, it's really hard to get in close to the lettering, especially when you're starting out. So I do suggest using the V groove, and this is the flute end mill, which is a more straight edge up spiral bit. You have to do a couple passes in order to get down, or you're going to break this bit. So I am using a spiral end bit to actually take out the excess around the lettering, but I started with the V groove first, and this is my round over bit that I'll be using for all the other excess material off of my sign, but I'm going to get the lettering nice and clean and crisp first. So these are my diamond burr sets. Now there's 150 grit and 80 grit. You can get a number of grit variations. I'm going to use the 80 grit. So I'm just going to show you some of the tips there. I will use the flatter, straighter edges for around the lettering and the ball for sanding. And I've got my Dremel tool with the router attachment. Now normally you'd flip the sign around so you can see what you're working on closest to you, but just for this video I'm just showing you the edge there. So you just hold on to the screw in the machine itself to be able to get back and forth, and if things are a little wonky, just go straight back and forth until it feels smoother. So I've got where I laser engraved, I've got that all cleaned out. Now I've taken off my router attachment for my Dremel tool and I've switched over to the ball-shaped diamond tip. And this is what I use to carve out the bug a little bit more, give him a little bit more detailed 2D look, 3D look. And I'll use that around my lettering as well to take down some of the steps that you can see there. But you definitely can see the lettering is looking nice and crisp and clean. And for dramatic effect, I threw some sawdust on there. Woohoo! It's all ready to paint. I'm sure all crafters can relate to this sign. So I've moved to my kitchen. My house is lived in. Just saying. So this is me and my wonderful husband in 2019 before COVID hit. In my defense, I thought we were all going to die, so I ate a lot of junk food. So please be kind. I'm a lot fluffier now, but now that we've all survived, I'm working on it. So I'm just getting everything set up. You saw me put a Lazy Susan down. That is absolutely critical if you're going to be moving a sign back and forth. And I've put down a towel because in a second here, you'll see my sign is actually two-sided. So I definitely do not want to damage either side while I'm painting. And you'll see my little kitten Pumpkin there, who's not supposed to be up on the counter. She knows better. I think I'll yell at her here to get down, and yeah, she's just so fearful there, running away. Yeah, whatever. But yeah, so I'm setting up all my materials, trying to shoo her. Oh yeah, and give her a little loving too. Yeah, I'm such a bad mama. So yeah, I can turn my sign around very easily. So I've got my water jars ready and margarine containers I recycle because I'm doing two sides of a sign. And if I'm mixing paint, I actually put the lid on and put them in the fridge to keep them from drying up on me. So I don't have to mix and don't have to worry about being exact on colors. So right now, yep, shooing the darn kitten again. Now I've mixed up a color as close to the wood finish as I could possibly make it, and right now I'm just filling out around the lettering and in some of the lettering, and this is what it'll look like because I'm going to be filling it with color. I plan on doing the bug as well because when you add in darker colors it will bleed into the raw wood, and yeah, it's almost impossible to sand off. So just showing you here that I'm using a firmer paintbrush. And see, this is what will happen is you'll get it kind of, a dry scattered looking if you haven't primed your brush first with water. And I'm just mixing a little bit water in my paint and that. And if you roll your brush a little bit to get the excess off the tip, you'll definitely get cleaner lines. Now I'm just going to show you with a softer natural bristle brush, and I haven't bothered to prime it as well with just a little bit of water. It's just too soft, as you can see, to be able to get any straight lines. And if you want to get precise with your painting, I just do not suggest using one of these brushes. So even if you add a little bit of water to it and get that in your paint, again, you're going to roll that around to kind of get the brush back into its shape, get the excess off. Even when you try to do lines, it's very hard to control. So that's why I suggest using a firmer bristle brush. Now I've got my 80s tunes cranked and I'm ready to paint. So right now I'm just priming the bug, and in a second I'll also be going over the round circles, which are beads, and because I'll be painting those red, and I don't want the red paint to bleed into the natural unfinished wood. It's so hard to try to sand it out. Oh, and don't I look attractive here? Here I am with my magnifying glasses and light. This is a must-have for when you're working on detail items. Okay, our next step will be sponge painting, and I just pick up cosmetic sponges from the dollar store. Now, sometimes the very end that is facing you may not exactly be the straightest, but you can definitely use the sides. Cut your sponges down to the size that you need. You don't need them too big. And that's what I'll use to sponge paint the lettering. And this is a handy little contraption. I like to use it to keep the hair off the sign while it's drying and to keep cats out of it. My husband said that in the morning he came down and found the kitten rolling around on the sign underneath the tent. So I don't know how she did that, but oh, she's such a little bugger, let me tell you. So I will dab my sponge into the paint, not too much, and sponge a little bit off on the lid and then to my lettering. You can hand paint it by all means. I mean, I will go in and touch up with a brush as well, but it just gives you such clean and crisp edges by sponge painting it. Okay, so completed the sponge painting and I filled in the lettering. Yeah, it looks like a 2-year-old did it just with a paintbrush. And when I look for my tent to put on to let it dry, yeah, I find my other cat laying on the tent. And she looks real concerned about it too. So I don't normally sand in my kitchen, but I made sure to empty my dust collector off my sander. So my first pass in here, I'm going in with a 120 grit sandpaper. And see, that just all comes up so nice, clean, crisp. And it helped that I put that natural looking paint primer on it first. So my first pass is 120. My second pass is going to be at 220 grit sandpaper. And this is my second pass, and I will make sure I go over the edges as well. Now I'm going to get all ready to clear coat the inside of my sign. So as you can see, it's pretty soupy, and so that's why I use good quality brushes. So if you want to see more tips and tricks on clear coating, go to video number 2 in my series there, and it goes over why I'm using the clears that I'm using. So the Varathane, I found out, does not break down the acrylic paint at all. Now this is sped up, but I do actually go a little slower because the paint, if you've got too much, it'll bubble up. And I'm going around the edges as well, because when I go to put the color stain on this, I do not want it bleed into the edges. So if I've accidentally got any clear coat up on the edges and that, I'll just give it a light sand. So a good tip is acrylic paint dries a little bit darker than the paint that you mix. So as you can see, for the color stain that I'm using, it's just a very soupy mixture. So I'll dip a nice soft brush there, and I will start away from any indented lettering and work the paint out of the brush, and then get in a little bit closer when the paint isn't so saturated into the brush. So I will actually do this twice, and put my little handy dandy tent back on this sign while it's drying. And that's with 2 coats, and it's fully dried, and it's a pretty good color match to the business card. So this is after 2 coats of clear, and I do 4 coats, and I will go over with a thicker brush as well, a much larger brush, and I do sand between the coats just with a 220 grit sandpaper, and you will get like a crystal clear diamond finish. And ta-da! That's what the sign looks like now, and the legs are removable for her to be able to go to vendor shows. So an upcoming video, and just to show you, instead of engraving so much like I did on the last sign, I'm just strictly doing lines, and look how deep and clean it is. So this will be an upcoming video on some of my welcome signs, how I did it and refinished it as well. So stay tuned. Be sure to like and subscribe so YouTube isn't making all the money itself from all the advertisement it sticks in here. So now, have a great day and go create!